This is the Domestic Homicide Review Overview Report into the death of adult D, born 7th of July 1990, died 8th of November 2014. The review, including recommendations, has been passed to the Home Office for consideration. On the day Leanne West died, the police investigation established the following. Leanne, referred to in the report as Adult D, had agreed to meet Tony Bragg, referred to as Adult Y, on the afternoon of the 8th of November 2014. She left work at 1:30 p.m. and had originally agreed to meet Bragg in town. They did meet in town, but Bragg said he wanted to talk to her alone, and he drove her back to his father's house where he himself was living. Less than 3 hours after Leanne left work, the emergency services received a call stating that a young woman had been assaulted and that she had stopped breathing. Despite the best efforts of the ambulance crew, the woman was pronounced dead at the scene. Tony Bragg was arrested at the scene, and in June 2015, he was found guilty of Leanne West's murder and sentenced to life imprisonment. Only Bragg can tell us what happened in the last moments of Leanne's life, but as yet, he has not done so. Prior to this, Leanne had purchased a mobile phone 3 weeks before she died. Between this date and the day that she died, there had been various text and social media messages between Leanne and Tony. Bragg had been more demanding of her, and he had declared his love for Leanne, which she did not reciprocate in her occasional text responses. He said he wanted to spend time with her, but Leanne made it clear that she didn't want anything to do with him because she was frightened that social services would take away her children again. One of the last text messages Leanne received from Bragg stated, "I'm sorry what I've done in the past. I just want to sort things out." Another text read, "Please can we start again? I'm ashamed of the things I've done to you, but I promise I can change." A few days before Leanne met Bragg, the tone of her texts became more responsive. One read, "How do I know I can trust you?" Another read, "I'm supposed to be starting a new life with Alan. He'd be devastated." One of her final texts to Bragg read, "I can't promise anything, but maybe everybody deserves another chance." Leanne's new partner, Alan McBride, says something changed in the week or so before she died. McBride says she seemed reluctant to talk about the move to Nottingham and became more distant to him. He said she became secretive with her phone, and McBride claims that he knew then that somehow Bragg had started to wheedle his way back into Leanne's affections. At the same time, the whole investigation had left Leanne feeling paranoid and distrustful of services. Whatever hold Bragg had over Leanne prompted the young woman to agree to meet him, possibly with the intention of resuming her relationship with him. But because of what she believed about her children, she felt she had to do so in secret. Had she been able to talk to someone, they might have been able to persuade her to do otherwise. There are many examples in the review of agencies and professionals demonstrating good practice, and this is rightly noted in the report. For instance, Children's Social Care followed the Safeguarding Children Board policies and procedures in relation to the immediate and short-term care of Leanne's 2 children. However, one of the purposes of conducting a review such as this is to determine what lessons can be learnt. It would appear as we piece together the components of Leanne's tragic story that it was highly probable that the young woman was a victim of domestic abuse in her relationship with Tony Bragg. The focus of the investigation was very much on the injuries sustained by Leanne's son. Yet, in hindsight, should not the focus have equally been on the relationship between Leanne and Tony Bragg, which we have said was almost certainly abusive? The review states that, in hindsight, children's social care is critical of itself for not asking Leanne whether Bragg had ever been violent to her. In my opinion, however, other examples of abusive behaviour should have been looked into. There is plenty in the review to suggest that odd comments and behaviours were not picked up on, and that had they been so, and observation shared, a pattern of coercive control, stalking behaviour, and domestic abuse might have been established. For instance, one of Leanne's work colleagues tells the review that during the 3-year relationship that Leanne had with Bragg, she became more and more distant. The colleague claims that Leanne was always a vivacious and sociable person, but by the end of the first year with Bragg, Leanne had all but stopped going out with her friends and colleagues. And if she did, she spent most of the night on the phone to Bragg. Similarly, the colleague claims Leanne's frequent Facebook updates gradually reduced to nothing, and any phone calls made to Leanne were answered by Bragg. The colleague says she believes that Bragg vetted Leanne's text messages, but she adds that Leanne never complained about Bragg or insinuated that anything untoward had happened. Leanne's mother and sister corroborate this, and they say that they saw less and less of Leanne and her children, and when they did, the periods of time were limited. Leanne's mother adds that she'd stopped wearing makeup and lipstick. It is possible that, had such patterns been noted at the time, the reality of Bragg's relationship with Leanne West might have compelled the investigative team to act differently in relation to their investigation into Bragg and the claims made against him by Leanne. This is conjecture on my part, of course, and we are told frequently in the review that Leanne was a private person who would not readily open up about any abuse. We are also told by family members that such was her distrust of the police and social services, she was unlikely to have revealed any history of domestic abuse, for fear of her children being taken away. The review notes that at no time was Leanne offered any specialist domestic abuse service. In the review, we hear from a paediatric nurse who noted something odd in the body language between Leanne and Bragg. Other contributors to the review include Bragg's GP, who tells us that Bragg visited him in 2009 with what he described as depression, possibly due to his experience as a soldier in combat. Unfortunately, the GP was unable to attend the Child Protection Conference to share this information. We also hear in the review from a member of the social housing team who states that in the period Leanne and Bragg were in a relationship, they were called to Leanne's flat 5 times to mend broken windows, and on one occasion to repair a damaged door. None of these professionals, the nurse, GP, or the housing officer, did anything wrong. Boxes were ticked, paperwork was completed properly. Yet, with the benefit of hindsight, we might begin to see a pattern emerging from their shared information and start to gain a clearer picture of the relationship between Leanne West and Tony Bragg. More obviously, Leanne's family has stated that, in their opinion, with a more effective joint police and social services investigation on Leanne's son Harry, the truth would have emerged about Bragg and his treatment of Leanne. But she was never given the opportunity to tell, because no one ever asked. It appears that each service went into procedural mode with the child protection issue and overlooked the probability mentioned by the police officer that domestic abuse could have been present. I offer my sincere condolences to the family of Leanne West, and I only hope that as a result of the review, we may learn from the findings and implement changes.